In all the lands far and wide, there was no king who was a match for King Obi. King Obi was a huge and handsome young man who had an extraordinary strength. He was extremely powerful that his bare hands were just enough to uproot houses. It felt like the gods themselves had chiseled the arms and muscles of King Obi and singled him out for all the blessings in the world. He was also of great affluence. He was quite young and was yet to be married. The maidens were in awe of him, but he cared less for women as he was diligently focused on building a big empire and amassing more wealth. Villages who were at war with him crumbled at his feet. He always have little or no need for his warriors as he can handle a whole community single-handedly. He claimed the lands and made survivors work for him. This made his power spread more as he became king over towns and even more communities. His fame was known in other lands and he was untouchable and always victorious. As King Obi took his breakfast at the rooftop of his palace, he looked to see how beautiful all the lands that spread even beyond his sight were. He smiled and nodded to himself. I have conquered kings. I have all that I need. Everything is at my beck and call. He chuckled as he ate his fruits. King Obi swelled with pride knowing he had achieved what older kings will never achieve. He walked to his throne room and dished out duties to the servants. He had settled some disputes and after a while, everything bored him. So he called a random servant. Come, he gestured to the young man. Yes, my king. The servant bowed before him. With all the lands I have acquired and the people under my command, do you think the gods of our land are responsible for our prosperity? The king asked in high spirits. The servant nodded. I believe so. The king laughed out loud. I do not believe the gods are responsible for our prosperity. I did it myself. The gods would not come down to do it. But, my king, the gods allowed it. The servant said. The king stood up and asked, do you choose the gods or your king? The servant said, Before the servant could finish his statement, the king had used his bare hands to snap the servant's neck, causing him instant death. The atmosphere became tensed as everyone found the scene gory. He looked around and called another servant. You, come here. He gestured. The servant was quite shaken as he knew what would befall him if he displeases the king. Yes, my king. The servant bowed to him. The king paced up and down, asking, do you think the gods exist? The servant was furiously sweating. Yes, my king. And did they win all my battles for me? He asked again. The servant cleared his throat and spoke. My king, you went into the battlefield and you conquered all with your power. The king gave the servant a friendly pat. You are very observant. You shall dine with me by evening. The servant was relieved. He bowed again and left the palace. Before the king found out how strong he was, he strongly believed in the gods. He made sacrifices and did the proper rites. But with his achievements and victories, he doubted the existence of the gods. He stopped engaging in the sacrifices and rites, and now he is convinced that the gods do not exist. What do? Sit in the shrine and enjoy the people bowing to them? They have no lands, no victories. They only have the priests who help them eat the sacrifices. The king scoffed. He called on a few guards to accompany him to the main shrine just before the old stream. As he walked, the guards held huge umbrellas made out of palm fronds and shiny fabrics over his head, and the people bowed as he passed the streets. He enjoyed the praises and glories the people gave to him, and he imagined no one sharing it with him, not even the gods of the land. As they got to the old stream, the king asked the guards to stop. Wait here, he commanded and walked into the shrine. He looked round. The shrine was a wide mud house, with palm fronds over the top. Red and black clothes were everywhere. Skulls and skins of wild animals decorated the walls, and there were goats and chickens running around. Is the priest here? He asked himself and peeped into the shrine. There was no one. The king saw the sculpted images and laughed. These are no gods. He began breaking the pots and calabash. He moved to pulling down the skulls and designs on the wall, tearing the red and black fabrics. He took the sculpted images and broke them into pieces and pushed the walls to the ground. The guards at the old stream wondered what was going on until they saw how the shrine fell apart and the enclosed space tore open in between dusts. But they did not move an inch as the king had ordered. They only watched from afar and wondered. It was clear to them that the king had destroyed the shrine. The king approached the guards. He was smiling and sweating profusely. There are no gods. If they were truly alive, they would have proven themselves to be stronger than I am. He clapped the dust off his hand. One of the guards cleaned his feet and they covered him with the umbrella and headed for the palace. Few hours after the king had destroyed the shrine, the priest ran to seek audience with the king. The guards tried to restrict him, but he wailed loudly, "My king, the shrine has been pulled down. And who would have done that if not for someone greater than the gods?" The king asked, calling the priest closer to him. Unaware of the king's mind, the priest said, "But there is nobody greater, my king." The furious king strangled the priest to death. "I am greater," he declared, and threw the body of the priest to a guard. "Give him to his people." That night, as the king ate his dinner and retired to his room, he was restless. He could not sleep, and he wondered why. There was no rain, but continuous storm and thunder raged the sky. He slept at past midnight, and when the day dawned, he could not believe his eyes. He had transformed into a goat. He ran out of the palace, and he ran into the evil forest. He began to roam around the evil forest for food. He fed on leaves and shrubs which were unlike his kingly meals. But as soon as it was night, he transformed back to human. The gods had made him goat by day and human by night, but he had no resting place in the palace. His place was in the evil forest. That was his punishment for being extremely arrogant and proud, that he pulled down the gods. For days, the palace was void of a king. No one knew his whereabouts. They assumed he had disappeared. Nevertheless, they continued their respective duties. The guards and search party combed through the kingdom and even the neighboring village, but their search was futile as no one saw the king. King Obi became a goat, and when there were wild animals during the day, he hid because he was just a goat and a prey to other animals in the forest. But at night, when he was human, he would tear down any wild animal that came for him. This continued until one day when he heard a cry at night. Oluchi was sent by her wicked stepmother to find firewood. She could not get firewood as all the trader had closed and nobody seemed to be at the market. "Mama, there is no firewood." Oluchi came back panting. "How many times will you come back saying there is no firewood? What do we use to make dinner?" Her stepmother asked, standing akimbo. "Mama, I have tried everywhere. We can only get firewood early tomorrow. Eating fruits this night would not be bad." Oluchi politely suggested, "My children and I have eaten the fruits, but I wonder what you will eat." She chuckled wickedly. "Ah!" she exclaimed sadly. She had plucked the mangoes by herself and she would not have any. She was sad. "Go and look for firewood. Else do not come back to this house." Her stepmother darted furious looks at her and shut the door against her face. Oluchi had no option than to walk to the evil forest. It was getting quite late and her stomach rumbled with hunger. As soon as she entered the forest, she saw sticks fit for firewood. She began picking them. As she walked further, she saw a pack of hyenas spreading around her. They snarled at her, wanting to attack her. She knew no one ought to be in the forest, but she cried loudly for help while trying to chase the hyenas away. The king heard the continuous cry for help and ran towards the spot. He found the girl amidst a pack of drooling and hungry hyenas. He snatched them by their tails and threw them away. He injured some of the animals and killed some. The girl's mouth was wide opened as she saw the man that saved her. "How did you get here?" he asked, dusting his hands. "I came for some firewood," she said, wiping her eyes dry. "By this time of the night?" He was curious. "Yes," she whimpered. "Come with me." He held her hands. They walked to his usual spot in the forest. He gathered some firewood for her. "I would make sure you get home safe," he said, gathering the firewood. "Thank you. I am grateful that you saved me," she said. He smiled and wrapped the firewood. "You haven't told me your name." "I am Oluchi," she replied. "Oluchi, that is a sweet name," he said as they walked out of the forest. Oluchi blushed at the compliment. As they got to the entrance of the forest, The moon shone brightly and Oluchi got a full glimpse of his face and his body. She was surprised. She thought he was a wandering villager. Suddenly she bowed to him, saying, "My king! Greetings. I never knew you were the one. I did not want you to know either, but now you know. Talk to me as though I am a commoner," he said. "Why, my king? If I may, why are you in the forest?" she asked. It was so unusual. A king can be where he should be. He chuckled. Oluchi nodded and thanked him profusely as he had walked her to her house. The king made his way back to the forest. Few days later, Oluchi was sent out by her stepmother. Oluchi had gone to fetch water from the stream in the evening and had come back to meet the house in a bad and dirty state. Her stepbrothers had invited their friends and littered the compound, which she swept thoroughly every morning. She was angry and told them to sweep the compound. "What is this? Chitty and Chike? Why is the compound littered? Clean it up before your mother comes back." Oluchi said, "No, we are not meant to clean." They argued with them. "So, are you meant to throw dirts where I clean?" she asked. Chitty and Chike ignored her. She fetched some more water, and by the time she was back with the last water pot, her furious stepmother waited for her. "Oluchi, I heard you told my boys to sweep the dirt," the woman shouted. "Yes, Mama. They littered the compound and I was fetching water," Oluchi said, dropping the last water pot. "Is that an excuse to shout on them and treat them like messengers?" she asked. "I did not treat them like messengers," Oluchi said. "Are you saying I'm lying?" The woman walked towards her. "If there is anyone who is treated like a messenger here, it is me. I do the household duties without help and get starved." Oluchi finally unbottled her feelings. Her stepmother sent a slap across her face. "You foolish girl! How dare you? Get out of this house." Her stepmother threw a broom at her and chased her out of the house. It was late at night and she did not know where to go to. Oluchi cried and wished she never had a stepmother. After a while of hanging around the street and crying, she decided to go to the evil forest with the hope of seeing the king again. She did not mind being attacked by wild animals because she was tired of living especially with her wicked stepmother. As Oluchi got to the evil forest, she walked in quietly, trying not to attract the wild animals. As she walked in, she heard some leaves rustling behind her, and suddenly her ankle felt pinched. She screamed in pain. It was a scorpion. The king rushed out to meet her. He carried her as she was not able to walk. He laid her to rest on the mat he had made and he treated her ankle. "Oluchi again. Are you here to fetch firewood?" No. My stepmother chased me out of the house," she said. "Ha! Was she the one who sent you to get firewood the last time?" "Yes. She treats me cruelly and I have done no wrong. I am really sorry about this. But is there more?" "Yes." She nodded and told him the whole story. Oluchi's mother had died shortly after giving birth to her. She grew with only her father and her father's sister who took good care of her. When she was old enough, her father married another woman. The woman seemed to care for her until her father died from an unknown illness. Oluchi's stepmother had given birth to twin boys before her father died. Everything went on smoothly until Oluchi slowly became the errand girl. She was overworked from the age of 13 until now. Oluchi was already 19 yet. Her stepmother refused to let her make friends and socialize with others. It was work and work all through. She was starved most times, but she had no friend to talk to about it. Her father's sister lives far away and her stepmother would never allow her go to see her aunt. Tears ran down Oluchi's eyes as she explained her plight to King Obi. He comforted her in a warm embrace and assured her that everything will be all right. "Oluchi, wipe your tears. These days would not last forever," he said. "But it feels longer every day. I just need an escape." She sighed. "I am always here for you, Oluchi." He smiled and hugged her. He was beginning to find her interesting and he liked her. He had seen how she looked under the moonlight. She was dark-skinned and beautiful. She had bright eyes and smooth face. She could pass for a princess except that her stepmother denies her access to good clothing. "Thank you," Oluchi whispered. King Obi and Oluchi talked into the night and after a while, Oluchi felt the need to go back. I will like to go back to home now. She must have searched for me. Oluchi stood up. All right, let me walk you home, he said. They bade themselves good night, and Oluchi sat in front of the house till her stepmother called her name. Every night, when Oluchi had the time, she went into the evil forest to see King Obi. They had so many things to talk about, and King Obi had learnt a great deal from her. One night, Oluchi got sent away again for correcting her stepbrothers. This time, she decided to stay with the king till morning. They met at the forest and they talked. They slept in each other's arms. When the day became bright, Oluchi yawned and woke up. She turned to see a goat beside her. She almost jumped out of her skin. She tried to understand what was happening, but as she took a closer look at the goat, she realized that the king was actually a goat. She could not believe her eyes. She left for her house. The next night, she went back to the forest. Immediately the king saw her. He walked to her. So, this is the reason why you are always here? Human at night and goat during the day? Why didn't you tell me? Oluchi asked. She felt bad that he did not deem it fit to tell her. The king held her hands and apologized. I am sorry for not telling you the reason why I stay in the forest. You have not always been here, have you? She asked. No, Oluchi. I became so proud and felt there was no greater person or deity. I brought down the shrine. He confessed. Ha! That is a terrible thing to do. She bit her lip. She knew the king was of great strength and was likened to a god, but she was not in support of his pride. I have realized. He heaved a sigh. Building back the shrine is a good start. She suggested. But how do I do that when I have been cursed? He asked. The king did not see any possibility in that. He was still a goat. The curse will wear off if the god sees that your heart is void of any evil, she assured him. The king nodded. But you must hate me, Oluchi, he said. He was not sure Oluchi would want to be in his company any longer. No, I do not hate you. I accept you for who you are. You are a changed man, I am sure. She hugged him. He felt relieved and happy. The following day, the king woke up. This time, not a goat but a king in his royal chambers. His heart was filled with gratitude as he saw that he had been restored back to himself. He praised the gods and made his way to the palace. The people were surprised to see the king, but no one dared question his absence. He called on the palace money-keeper. Yes, my king. The man bowed before him. Please, arise. Take to budget what is needed for the perfect building for the shrine. Yes, my king. The man smiled. Get back to me before the end of today. The king said, Just as you wish, my king. The king smiled as he was served fresh fruits. He thanked the gods in his heart as he ate. Days went by and the king made arrangements for the building of the shrine. One morning, as he woke up, all he could think of was Oluchi. He wondered if she still goes to the evil forest. He sent a guard and a messenger to bring Oluchi to the palace. When they got to Oluchi's house, the stepmother answered the knock on the door. She was surprised to see the king's messenger at her door. Greetings to the king. What brings you here? She asked, scanning their fierce looks. The king has summoned Oluchi, your daughter, the messenger said. She narrowed her eyes and asked, Are you sure it is not a mistake? The messenger was growing impatient. Our king never utters a mistake, he said. Just then, Oluchi goes to the door. She looked at the king's messenger, wondering if he was here for her. Oluchi, go inside, her stepmother said, but she doesn't move an inch. The king has sent for you. You are to come with us immediately, the messenger said. Oluchi dropped the leaves she had been picking and left with the messenger and the guard. Her stepmother tied a wrapper around her waist and followed behind them. She was inquisitive and wanted to know what business Oluchi had with the king. When they arrived at the palace, the messenger presented Oluchi. She bowed before the king. Her stepmother bowed from a distance and watched the scene. When King Obi saw Oluchi, his heart gladdened. He smiled and stood up from his throne. He walked to her and embraced her. Everyone shared looks of surprise. They had never seen the king so humbled and extremely calm. Oluchi's stepmother gaped in awe as she was surprised as well. The king said aloud, Oluchi would live in the palace from henceforth. She has been a good friend and our bond is one that can never be severed. Oluchi thanked the king and whispered to him, I was not expecting this at all. Well, I will do anything for you, he said to her. Thank you, my king. She bowed. Just then, Oluchi's mother coughed aloud. The king asked, Who do we have here? She is my stepmother. Oluchi said, Oh, I heard you have been cruel to your stepdaughter. You have treated her in ways even you would not treat a stranger. And for what reason? The king grew angry at the sight of the woman. My king, what you have heard is not true. Oluchi's stepmother objected. So, do you say I am a liar? The king asked. The palace guards were worried that he might take to snapping the woman's neck. She bowed to him. Far from it, my king. She is my daughter. The king ignored her and held onto Oluchi's hands. Well, you should go home before I change my mind. Oluchi is to stay in the palace. Before Oluchi's stepmother could utter a word, the palace guards escorted her out of the king's presence. The king ordered that the servants prepared a room for her and give her a good bath. He also provided beautiful clothings for her. Oluchi, follow the servants. You will be taken care of and have no lack. We would eat lunch together. He let go of her hands and smiled. Thank you so much, my king. I am overwhelmed by your kindness. She bowed and followed the servants. Oluchi's mouth dropped in awe. The room was hers alone. It was beautiful and cozy. There were several beautiful dresses and beads for her. The servants took good care of her and made her hair. They dressed her beautifully. When it was time for lunch, she went into the king's table room. He stared at her until she sat down. She was extremely dashing. They had yam and rich oil sauce for lunch. Oluchi in a long time had not eaten anything as nourishing as that. By the time she sat with the king, he could not stop praising her. Her cheeks burnt from the unending smiles. I do not want to rush things, but I must say this, Oluchi. I want us to get married. I am in love with you. The king finally said, after the servants had cleaned the table. Oluchi had felt same way about the king, but she was used to not expecting anything. She kept mute. Why are you quiet? Talk to me, please. The king held out his hands to her. She held his hands and said, Words fail me, my king. I love you as well. He asked delightedly, So, what are we waiting for? She paused a bit and spoke. I would want to involve my stepmother. I do not want her to feel left out. He sighed. You have a good heart. After all she had done. Well, your wish is my command. I will send my messenger to her. King Obi and Oluchi went to the rooftop, showing her the view of the kingdom from above. Later that evening, the messenger spoke with Oluchi's stepmother. Greetings from the king, he said. Have you come to take my sons too? She asked sarcastically. The king is to be married to Oluchi, and she has sent a message that you are to be included in the marriage plans as her mother. He dropped the message. Oluchi's stepmother danced with joy. Thank you. Oh, send my greetings to the king. As soon as the messenger left, Oluchi's mother scoffed. So, she wants to always be the good one and I will let her know that she deserves nothing but misery. That marriage will never hold. She stamped her feet and shut the door. Thank you for watching. If you have enjoyed this video and would like to see a part 2, comment part 2 in the comment section and subscribe to this channel. Have a wonderful day.